What is mentoring about? Is it about telling people what to do? Or is there more to it than that? How do questions help in the process? That's what we're going to cover in this session on the art of questions. The objectives of this session are that at the end of it you'll be able to assess the importance of questions in mentoring, analyse what sort of questions will empower the person you're mentoring, and use questions to help someone find their own solutions. Peg describes two ways of helping people, pulling or pushing. Pulling involves creating a space for your client where they can feel very comfortable to share their thoughts and challenges. The mentor helps by listening, paying great attention to what is happening with the client, and then asking powerful questions. On the other hand, there is pushing, where the mentor will stimulate and offer ideas, challenges, learning, stories, tools, and wisdom from their own experience. Most effective mentors are very good at managing the balance between these two, and this usually means more pulling than pushing. The key skill in pulling is asking questions. So why questions? Many people, when they start mentoring, think that it's all about a more experienced person telling a less experienced one what to do. The purpose of mentoring is to empower someone so that they can learn and develop and achieve what they want. This means learning to work things out for themselves. If someone is constantly being given answers, then they stop thinking for themselves and their learning is much less. That's not to say that you'll never want to offer advice, and we will look at that later. But questions provide a very effective way of empowering someone. Each person will have their own perception of the situation. And as a mentor, you will want to work from your client's model of the world, because that is where they're starting from. That is what they understand. You will have a different model, and if you just impose your model of the world, learning is slower and will make far less sense to the client. Questions enable you to find out the client's perceptions of the situation so that they can work within their own framework. Questions enable the person to reflect on what they're doing and get maximum learning from that process. It also teaches them how to do the reflective process. Skillful questions from the mentor helps the person come up with solutions which they want to put into place. Questions are also useful to help the person decide what action they're going to take to move themselves forward. Linked to the benefit of empowerment, asking questions gradually teaches the person the way to think to work things out for themselves, and to learn how to ask themselves questions so that they can learn how to help themselves better. So what sort of attitude do you want in order to ask really great questions? As a mentor, you'll want to ask questions with an open mind and free from any preconception about what the solution is and how it will be arrived at. It does mean asking the questions from your client's model of the world, and certainly if you have your own solutions, then only use them as a possible option to give the client. Being curious really helps ask great questions. Be genuinely curious about how is this person thinking to get the results they're currently getting, and what is their thinking about how they can move forward. Persistence is important because clients will often avoid answering the questions that will move them the most. This is not a conscious strategy, but happens nonetheless. Being able to spot when this happens and prodding to get these answers, even though you may not be popular with your client at the time, is often a mentor doing the most they can to help the client achieve the most. The questions should be such as to move the person from where they are to where they want to be. So what makes an empowering question? Firstly, it gets the person to think in a resourceful way. If someone is going to think creatively and effectively about what they're going to do, it's vital that they are in a resourceful way. This could be to do with being inspired, motivated, determined, confident, etc. So the questions want to be phrased in such a way that will help them think this way. Empowering questions usually start with what or how. Other questions, where, when, and who, are good as well. Why is sometimes a useful question, but why can lead people to go to blame and excuses. If you say to someone, "Why did you do that?" when things have not worked so well, they will often blame other people or make excuses. And that doesn't help with moving forward or taking responsibility for changing things. Empowering questions assume there is a solution. If a client has a problem and hasn't been able to think through a solution, then it's so important that any question assumes that there is a solution and that the client will find a way to act. There is always a way to change what you're doing and try something different. Your questions want to reflect this. Questions like, what are you going to change about what you're doing? What options are open to you? Will get the client to understand that they can change. Empowering questions are focused on coming up with a solution rather than concentrating on the problem. Reflective questions are useful in order for the person to be able to explore and learn, but the questions will want to focus on what to do to move forward. Empowering questions are positive and lead to positive frames of mind. Whatever action plan a person has, that is about what the person wants rather than about what they don't want, and leads them to feeling motivated and positive about it. So the questions that result in the action plan should be phrased in a way that leads to being positive. Empowering questions lead to the person taking ownership and being committed to a solution. We've already talked about blame and excuses, with comments like, "Well, I can't do anything until they change their behaviour." That's not taking ownership. And questions will want to take the client to thinking about what they can do. It could be ones like, well, what can you do to influence them? What action can you take despite their behaviour? What can you do to help them change their behaviour? Or, how can you change the way you're thinking about this? All those questions will lead to ownership and empowerment. Here are some examples of empowering questions that you could use. For instance, if someone says to you something like, "I want to improve the effectiveness of the team," the questions you could ask are ones like, what's important to you about doing that? What would be happening differently if the team were effective? What's working well at the moment? What do you not want to change? What options are open to you? What are you going to do to improve things? What would make you totally committed to this option? Or, for instance, if someone were to say, "I feel my talents are not being fully used in this job," then the sort of questions you could ask are, well, what impact is that having on you? What talents are not being used at the moment? What opportunities are there for using those talents in your current job? What are you going to do to open up those opportunities? Where else could you use those talents? What do you need to do to make sure your talents are being fully used? And here's an exercise to really help you practice asking great questions. For each of the following statements, write 6 empowering questions to take the person from where they are to where they want to be. I want to increase my chances of promotion. We're not reaching our targets. I want to feel more confident about doing appraisals with my team. I'm now having to go to more networking meetings and I hate them. I just do not get on with my manager. And when you've practiced all those questions, then the next time someone comes to you with a problem, use empowering questions and notice the results.